is what we call chemical abortion, or RU486. And that chemical abortion cannot be performed until the baby has already had a beating heart for about 2 weeks. In fact, by the time the chemical abortion RU46 is performed, every one of us already had traceable brain waves, which are traceable by 5 to 6 weeks in the womb. So at 6 weeks, when the earliest form of abortion can be performed, you already had a beating heart and brain waves, as does every baby we're trying to save. That's a scientific fact. Now, for most of us, these facts register deeply at a level of humanity. For many folks, it still doesn't manage to create that level of humanity. There's a new conversation going on that discusses the unborn's capacity to feel pain. In fact, 10 states have passed laws called the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act that will prevent abortion in those states after the point in pregnancy at which the unborn child is capable of feeling pain. Now, science at this point measures pain for the unborn at about 20 weeks of the pregnancy. That's 5 months. That's very young, and it's actually 2 weeks before most babies who might be born preemie can actually survive. Although more and more babies are being born at 22 weeks, and one has even been proven to be born at 21 weeks and has survived. That's how amazing our technology is. These children are being born at younger and younger stages. In fact, I have an exquisite story to tell you about one particular little premature baby who's very close to my heart. 13 years ago, my beautiful niece Amelia was born. Mind you, I said 13 years ago. Not last month, not last year. 13 years ago, she was born at 22 weeks. She was as big as your hand. She's now a healthy, beautiful 13-year-old going off to high school next year. Most people in America have no idea that children born at that stage of pregnancy, because of whatever complication may have been going on in their mother's pregnancy, can survive and are healthy. So these are facts about life in the womb that we have an obligation to bring to the conversation. By so doing, we give back the baby's face. We make them one of us, not a thing, not an object. Remember what I said yesterday in the show about the F word, fetus, which for many people means something disposable, perhaps even something frightening or ugly. For us, it should mean someone vulnerable, someone very fragile, someone very precious, a tiny, tiny, precious baby in their mother's womb. So when we talk about him, and we help people see that little baby boy's face in his mother's body, then we're beginning to have a conversation that expands the issue beyond rhetoric and to scientific fact. It is the ultimate human rights issue, and it can be based on science, and it can affect anyone regardless of their philosophical or religious perspective. So you can persuade anybody, whether they belong to your church or not. And that's your job, and that's my job too at National Right to Life. Now, I want you to understand something that I realize. Abortion always fails the mother and the child. It fails them both because it constantly says that this is somehow necessary. And that's the second argument. That's the second part of this conversation. These two arguments, argument number one and argument number two, very often dovetail. I must tell you that when I'm doing a news program, let's say, perhaps I'm on CNN or the Nightline or on something on Fox News, all of which I've done. When I go on these programs, I'm often asked to come on and speak about a particular issue, maybe a Supreme Court decision, maybe a new piece of legislation that's going forward. Ultimately, the decision or the conversation steers back to these basic elemental questions of, is this a human being or not? And what about the mother's right to make this decision? So when we talk about the second argument, it's my body, my choice, then we have to remember that in reality, there is a decision being made. It's a life or death decision that this mother is making. It's a permanent decision. But we must speak with enormous compassion. The mothers and fathers that we're speaking to, and remember I said yesterday that one of the most powerful components of how we are reaching society now is affected by something quite remarkable to ponder on. And that is, because of the sheer volume of abortions that have happened in the United States today, it is impossible for any one of us watching this program right now to think that we don't know someone who's had an abortion. I've had one. I have 7 brothers and sisters. I have multiple nieces and nephews. I have cousins. I have extended in-law family. All of those people know me. I'm very public with my story. Most people know that I had an abortion in 1981. The people you're talking to may have never shared their secret. So when you are talking to these folks, what you're thinking about is, how can I not only tell them the truth about abortion, but how can I do it in a way that is compassionate and comprehends that one of the walls I may be running into is a wall of grief, a wall of pain. I think that's the #1 reason why many pro-lifers are having a hard time communicating on what should be intellectually just straight fact. This is an unborn child in the womb. We can prove it through science. There he is. There she is. But it's the damage that abortion's already done that is interfering more with our ability to communicate. But abortion is always a bad decision for the mothers too. The evidence is mounting. Associations and programs like the Association for Interdisciplinary Research in Values and Social Change, an organization made up of academics, researchers, statisticians, has since 1985 been compiling data and evidence about how damaging abortion really is on the psychological and physical well-being of mothers after abortion. So for all of us, we need to know some of those facts and figures. And you can go to National Right to Life's website, nrlc.org, and get more of that information, because it is important for you to realize when you're talking to many people now, you're talking through the pain. So the more you understand about the effect of abortion on mothers and how women's lives have been permanently altered by a decision that ended their children's life, the better off you'll be when you handle that question. Now, from my point of view, abortion is always a bad response to very real problems. The pro-life movement has understood for many years that when society says women need abortion, this so-called war on women, that laws are taking away access to abortion, what we're avoiding is the phenomenon of, what are women really looking for? What is it that they really need when they're facing a pregnancy? Being pregnant isn't the problem. It's the circumstances surrounding that pregnancy. The baby is not the problem. I mean, the unborn child is not at issue here. The unborn child didn't cause the reasons why the pregnancy is difficult. Perhaps she has no support system from the baby's father. Perhaps she's very young and is afraid to tell her parents. Perhaps she has a boss who's threatened to fire her if she's pregnant. Perhaps she is dealing with health problems that make being pregnant complicated. These are real problems. The baby is not the cause of those problems. So abortion, from our point of view, all of us speaking to our friends, is a bad response to real problems. Women need life-affirming responses. Opportunities to get the kind of support and help that respects their intelligence and their personal strength to deal with even the most complicated of pregnancies. That's why the pro-life movement from the beginning, and this is something you would share with your friends and neighbors as you speak about this issue, make sure you know this little fact. There are over 3,000 mother helping centers throughout the United States dedicated, with free of charge, to providing assistance to mothers in crisis. This is something most people we talk to on a daily basis know nothing about. They have no idea that in every community across the United States and in many parts of the world abroad, there are people dedicating their lives, their time, their talents, and their abilities to providing the kind of life-affirming answers that protect mother and child, that respect them both equally, and require, as we do at National Right to Life, that they will ultimately be protected under the law equally. This isn't a question of pitting mother against child. So these two arguments of it's a blob of tissue, not a baby, and it's a woman's choice, and the government should stay out of it, are all negative and inappropriate and smoke screens to the reality of what is going on in every abortion. Every abortion ends a baby's life and leaves a mother scarred, either emotionally, spiritually, or physically. These are things you can educate your friends on. This is what you can do to make a difference in communicating on life issues. Sometimes just bringing forward this kind of information, that the risk of breast cancer after abortion is 5 times greater for women who abort in their first pregnancy. A little fact like that can begin an entirely new conversation. So as you begin those conversations, remember to listen. You may be hearing somebody who really needs to tell you, I can't hear what you're saying because I had an abortion, or I know my daughter had an abortion, or my sister-in-law had an abortion, and I love her. And what you're telling me about this unborn child makes me question how I feel about my sister-in-law's decision. But I love her. How can I help her? What do I need to do? So listen as you speak with people, and you will understand what you can do to resolve their hurt. So, we're about to go to break, but after we come back from the break, we're going to take a little time to play with some of those questions that I know many of you have already heard. I can't wait to see you here.